That's debatable.
We're good.
That's debatable.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. We're gonna go ahead and call this meeting to order. Let the record show that all members are present. At this time, we'll stand to do the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, everyone should have got a copy of the minutes to review. Does anybody have any additions or corrections? If not, we will let those stand as presented. Mrs. Browning, do you have claims for us?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to approve all claims and payrolls as submitted.
I have a motion to approve the claims and payrolls. I have a second from Mr. Cornelius. Anyone have any questions? If not, all in favor, raise your right hand. 7-0. No donations, right?
No donations.
Information report.
Information report will start with recognizing our staff members of the month, sponsored by a big injury law firm. First, I would like to recognize Stacy Johnston, who's an instructional assistant, and she's nominated by her principal, Kristen Murphy. Mrs. Murphy wrote, "Stacy Johnston shines in every corner of our building. She is always wearing a smile, never raises her voice, and truly loves our little hatchets with all her heart. Whether she's greeting you at the door or stepping in to help wherever needed, you know Stacy genuinely cares, not just about our students, but about their families and all of us on staff. As a classroom aide, her job isn't easy, but you'll never hear her complain. Her kindness, dedication, and willingness to support both students and staff make her an irreplaceable part of our Washington primary family. Stacy is truly an asset, and we would be lost without her." Thank you, Stacy. Next, we have Alejandra Cruz, who's a secretary at Washington Intermediate School, and she's nominated by her principal, Caleb Cherry. Mr. Cherry writes, "Alejandra is an incredibly hardworking and positive member of our team whose contributions are invaluable. Her ability to communicate effectively with our Spanish-speaking families ensures that every family feels heard, supported, and included. Alejandra consistently goes above and beyond, always stepping up without hesitation to support staff, students, and families in any way she can. Her dedication, flexibility, and can-do attitude make her an essential part of our success. Congratulations, Alejandra." Is Matt, I don't think Matt Sissel's
No,
here.
he's working tonight, actually, catering.
Okay, so he's not here because he's working one of our student events, but I do want to read what his director, our food service director, Evan Lips, wrote. And Evan said, "Matt has been working for the school district for almost 15 years. In that time, he has become an invaluable asset to the high school cafeteria team. In his career, Matt has near perfect attendance at work. Although he is primarily in the dish room, he is always willing to fill in other jobs in the cafeteria to cover other employees' shifts when they take days off. He also comes in after school to help with the dinner program and catering. Could we do summer bag hand without Matt? Yes. Would we want to? No. Having someone who is willing and able to carry the heavy stuff makes him irreplaceable for that program. He probably is not here tonight because we are working catering for junior ROTC. Thank you, Matt, for all your hard work and dedication to Washington Community Schools food service." And finally, we want to recognize Matt Riney, who's the computer science teacher at Washington High School, and he's nominated by the principal, Brian Holland. Mr. Holland writes, "Mr. Riney is a computer science teacher at Washington High School. He exemplifies what it means to be a great teacher. He relates well with students. He is passionate about everything hatchets. Mr. Riney has been a leader within our school and has taken on various roles during his teaching time at WHS. Not only is Mr. Riney knowledgeable in the area of computer science and robotics, he truly cares about kids. He goes above and beyond to help our students. He takes what they do in class and he creates real-world experiences. With the support and efforts of the community, Mr. Riney helps his advanced computer science classes create the Christmas light show each year. Also, the beginner computer science classes create a hallway Christmas light show, and he has taken our robotics program to a championship level. Mr. Riney is a Washington Hatchets graduate, and we are very fortunate to have him at WHS teaching. Congratulations, Matt. What's that? He did, yeah. Right. The second part of the information report tonight, I've prepared some data for you to look at. This is our current data for our pre-registration for kindergarten for next year, and it's something on my radar. Right now, our current numbers are trending considerably lower than where we've been the last three cohorts. Right now, for both primary and Veal, we have 142 pre-registered. When you compare that to last year, we were at 161, 2 years ago, 186, 3 years ago, 158, it's a little bit closer. And then the other piece of information that I've provided to you is basically a comparison to where each of those spring numbers and where we ended up in August of each year. And if you look at the data, it's really kind of interesting, where basically we gain about another 30 across the district. So like last year, we were 161, we ended up with 193 kindergarten students. Spring 23, 186, we ended up with about 216. Spring 22, in the spring, we're at 158, we ended up with 186. So right now, this current number that we have, 142, we're trending, it looks like we're gonna have about 172 between the two, between primary and Veal. And that's essentially 10 sections of kindergarten. And so it's something that I'm monitoring. I think it's something that we'll have to consider if we can have a kindergarten class at Veal. As you can see right now, there's only 11 students signed up at Veal. I'm concerned with new legislation being passed and just kind of tightening the flow of funding for us. I think we have to consider doing things more efficiently. The second item that I've included with that is a letter that I've drafted that I would plan to send next week to the 11 families that we're considering this, so that if it is a decision that we ultimately have to make by the end of May, it wouldn't come as a total surprise. And I know that could be upsetting to some, but I just think it's something that we need to look at. You'll see here in a little bit, we have personnel. One of the elementary teachers there at Veal is retiring, so we're basically could absorb the loss of a class and not have to move a teacher right now to make that work. And then, I think the big picture is that as we continue with our project and our ultimate goal of increasing the space that we have for kindergarten through fourth grade, it might make sense right now not to start kindergarten classes there, with the idea that in 2 years, everyone's going to be in Washington Primary or Washington Intermediate. So that's the information that I have. If anybody has any feedback or any thoughts on any of that.
Sounds like it makes sense to me. I guess hate to see the numbers down, but doesn't doesn't seem to make sense to keep 10 classes at that number.
Okay.
I'll make a comment just to reiterate, we're not making any decisions. We're not closing the Beal kindergarten class. We're just monitoring things.
Right.
So we don't get a bunch of phone calls tonight.
Right.
Yeah, and it's gonna be, I mean, I understand too, there's gonna be, probably kids at Beal that have a sibling getting ready to come into, kindergarten there, and that would be tough. I understand that too. I guess just to say it out loud, those students could come to the intermediate or the primary or wherever too.
Right.
To get those kids back in the same building potentially.
Kevin, is there any idea when we'll know legislation wise, the funding situation? Will it be summer,
Well, I
the
think
changes?
we should know in the next couple of weeks.
Couple
You know,
weeks.
yesterday was an important day in Indy. The revenue report came out and it wasn't good. So that has everybody not feeling good about what the budget would be that would impact the education account. But I think we would know, we would have an idea at least of what that might look like by the time we have our May board meeting.
Okay. Would our classrooms at Parker be able to absorb that number?
Yes. Because
How many
that's
is
really,
there now?
that's really the reason why I would even
Consider
consider it, you know, with where I think we'll be at 172. And that'll be less than any of the numbers we've had at primary the last 3 years. Like right now, our kindergarten's in the 190s. We've been as high as in the two teens, which, you know, that was pretty tight. 2 years ago was in the 180s. So, I mean, it's an overall number that's less than anything we've had at primary anyway. So that's really kind of something that I'm looking at.
Yeah, primary is 179 this year, 205 last year, 170 the year before.
Oh,
So
okay, yeah.
171's.
Yeah.
Not gonna be anything they haven't seen before.
No,
And transportation won't be an issue. We've got that pretty well covered, right?
right.
Yeah.
We have kids already that live in Beal District that attend Washington Primary.
And that pre-registration number they can still pre-register, right?
It can,
Currently.
and it trickles.
Right.
I mean, you know, from the last 2 or 3 weeks that I've been watching, we had a preschool registration, so that brought a few more kindergartners out.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I think we'll just,
Wait and see.
we'll see how fast it grows. I think there's still at least 25 to 30 kids out there, and maybe there's more.
I'm just glad we're conscious of it. We know what it is and trying to let the public know, you know, ahead of time, this could happen.
Right.
So just being as transparent as we can. And if we have to, that's the route we'll have to go, but that way people know
Right.
communication. So it's good.
Yeah, okay. Yep. So we've come to the time for any patron statements on agenda topics. Do anybody sign up for that? No. Okay, we'll move on to personnel. We got some retirements.
Yes, like to recommend the retirement request for Mary Paget, Janet Stuckey, and Kathy Winkler, 3 ladies that have contributed a tremendous amount of years in service to Washington Community Schools, so they will definitely be leaving big shoes for us to fill.
Okay, I have a recommendation to approve those 3 retirements. Do I have a motion for that for Mr. Hedrick? Second for Mr. Miller. I have any questions? I would reiterate it's a powerful trio, but glad to see they can enjoy the retirement, but hate to lose them. All right, all in favor of approval, raise your hand. 7-0. Resignations.
Like to recommend the board accepts the resignations for Susan Wooldridge, who's been a primary library aide, Angel Mead as junior high assistant girls track coach, Alan Gongwer as summer remediation teacher for 2025, and Amy Batten as summer remediation teacher in 2025.
Okay, I have a recommendation to approve the resignations. I have a motion for that from Mrs. Browning, second from Mr. Cornelius. Do I have any questions on the resignations? Not all in favor? 7-0. No leaves.
No leaves.
Appointments.
Appointments, I would like to make the recommendation for the appointments of Lisa Emick for High Ability Summer Camp Teacher, Emily Davis for High Ability Summer Camp Teacher, Andrew Ramsey for High Ability Summer Camp Teacher, Megan Riley as a Summer Remediation Teacher for this summer, Laura Allison as a Summer Remediation Teacher for this summer.
Okay, I have a recommendation to approve the appointments as listed. Do I have a motion for that? Mr. Hedrick, a second from Mr. Miller. Any have any questions on that list of appointments? If not, all in favor? 7-0. ECA appointments.
Have one ECA appointment, Solomon Davis, to serve in the role of junior high assistant girls track coach.
I have a recommendation to approve the ECA appointment. Motion for that. Mrs. Browning, a second from Dr. Elmer. Any questions on that? If not, all in favor? 7-0. Any other?
No other.
Any old business?
No old business.
Never have old business like. All right, now, I guess, so we're gonna pause the meeting and we're going to move into a lease and additional appropriations hearing. So I have a script to read.
Yes.
I'm always so good at this. The next item on the agenda is for the board to hold a lease hearing and additional appropriation hearing in connection with the proposed construction projects. If you are interested in speaking at the hearing, please make sure you have signed the sign-in sheet, which should include your name and address. After the presentation, there will be an opportunity for the public to make comments about the lease rental to be paid under the lease and appropriation of bond proceeds. At the hearing, we will ask that each person limit their comments to 3 minutes and that the topic be limited to the lease rental and appropriation of funds under consideration. The notices for this hearing were published as legally required. Pursuant to Indiana Code 20-47-3, before school corporation may enter into a lease with a nonprofit building corporation, the school corporation must conduct a hearing regarding the execution of proposed lease agreement and whether the rental to be paid to the leaseor, building corporation under the proposed lease is a fair and reasonable rental for the proposed improvements. Similarly, before a school corporation can appropriate any dollars it directly receives as bond proceeds, it must conduct a hearing on those proceeds for the additional appropriation of those funds. We will now hear from Mr. Frank about the proposed projects related to the lease and additional appropriation.
So in terms of the purpose of the hearing, the purpose of this hearing will be to receive the input of all persons interested with respect to the lease or with respect to the additional appropriation not to exceed $26,430,000 for the purpose of construction, renovation, and improvements to school facilities, including safety and security renovations at Washington Primary School, Washington Upper Elementary School, Washington Intermediate School, and Washington Junior Senior High School. Construction of additional classroom, administrative, and service space at Washington Primary School, renovations and improvements to the Washington Junior High Gymnasium, and other renovation improvements at school facilities owned and operated by the school corporation, including deferred maintenance improvements, site improvements, and the purchase of equipment and technology. All of that is collectively the project. For the lease hearing, the school corporation is funding this project through a lease financing as it has done with other past construction renovation projects. Lease financings are used by school corporations across the state of Indiana in order to borrow for renovation and construction. The building corporation will purchase the Washington Primary School building, including real estate upon which addition will be constructed at the closing for at least the appraisal value. The building corporation will then lease the building and real estate back to the school corporation. The lease rental due from the school corporation will be paid from property taxes and will be for the lease of the building during the term of the lease. The lease rental, as shown as a maximum amount in lease, will be sufficient to pay the principal and interest due to the bondholders. For the additional appropriation hearing, the school corporation will receive money for the sale of the real estate to the building corporation. Since this money was not initially listed in the school corporation's annual budget, the school corporation is required to hold a hearing for the additional appropriation of those funds. And as we move into the next part, ground rules is to the public input. At this specific hearing, we will ask that each person limit their comments to 3 minutes and that the topic be limited to the proposed lease and appropriation of the bond proceeds.
Okay, so we will now open the public hearing. As mentioned earlier, we will ask that you state your name and address. And limit your comments to the topic and keep them to 3 minutes. Who might like to speak? All right. If not, we will adjourn the lease and additional appropriation hearing. Thank you to all who participated in the hearing. We will now close the hearing and reopen the regular meeting. All right. New business.
So now we have a series of resolutions to pass that's related to all of the lease and appropriation process. The first one, I am recommending the adoption, the resolution authorizing the execution of the lease agreement and the sale of real estate, which the board received as Exhibit A, just to provide a summary for everyone. As required by Indiana Code 20-47-3, after a lease hearing, the school board must approve the lease agreement and authorize the school board officers to execute such lease. This lease is the agreement whereby the school corporation will levy the required property tax to pay the lease payments throughout the life of the bond issue. The lease payments will be paid to the building corporation and used to pay the bondholders to repay the proposed bonds.
Okay, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe at this time I would need a motion to approve the resolution authorizing execution of the lease agreement. A motion from Mr. McCormick. Do I have a second for that? Mr. Owen?
That's the first one. I thought it was.
Does anybody have any questions about this? Not. All in favor of approval? 7-0. All right, now we adopt the additional appropriation resolution.
Yes, I'm recommending the adoption of the additional appropriation resolution. And that is Exhibit B. And just as an overview of this one, the additional appropriation resolution outlines the appropriation of funds received for the sale of certain school facilities to the building corporation where portions of the proposed projects will be constructed. The resolution also specifies that any such funds will be placed in a school corporation construction account separate from all other school corporation funds and spent only on the project, since the appropriation will be from bond proceeds.
Okay, at this time I would need a motion to approve the additional appropriation resolution from Mr. Omer. Second for that, from Mr. Miller. Questions on this part of the resolutions? If not, all in favor? 7-0. On to the next.
The next one, I'm recommending the adoption of the resolution approving the formation of the building corporation. And the board received that as Exhibit C. And the overview for this is the next resolution is the resolution reapproving the building corporation. This resolution reapproves the formation of the building corporation for federal tax purposes.
Okay, I have a recommendation to approve the resolution that approves the formation of the building corporation. A motion from Mrs. Browning, a second from Mr. Cornelius. Anybody have any questions? All in favor? 7-0. We have several of these, so buckle in. All right, the next resolution.
Next one, I am recommending the adoption of the resolution permitting assignment of construction bids and contracts. This is Exhibit D. And the overview for this one is the next resolution is the resolution assigning bids, contracts to the building corporation. At the bond closing, the building corporation will own facilities where some of the renovation work will be completed. The building corporation will also be the issuer of the bonds. As a result, certain contracts may need to be with the building corporation because the building corporation will hold the money to pay the contractors. The school corporation receives the bids and or contracts and awards the bids and or contracts under state law, but then retains the right to assign those bids and or contracts to the building corporation for payment at the discretion of the board.
Okay, I have a recommendation to approve the resolution permitting assignment of construction bids and contracts to the building corporation. I have a motion for that. Mr. Miller, second from Mr. Hedrick. Anybody have any questions on that one? All in favor of approval? 7-0.
Next one, I'm recommending the adoption of the resolution approving second supplement to master continuing disclosure undertaking and issuance of bonds. And and the overview for this one is the resolution satisfies the Securities and Exchange Commission requirement that a school corporation enter into a continuing disclosure undertaking agreement if it issues bonds to public investors. The agreement requires that the school corporation agree to timely provide certain financial information and provide notice of certain material events if and when they occur.
Okay, I have a recommendation to approve the resolution permitting assignment of contracts and bids to the building corporation, but this is a second supplement, correct? This is not the same thing we just did.
Yes.
All right, I have a motion for that. Mr. Hedrick, second. Mr. McCormick. Anybody have any questions on that? All in favor of approval? 7-0. One more.
And I'd like to recommend the adoption of the resolution approving the issuance of bond anticipation notes. This is Exhibit F. The overview of this says the resolution authorizes but does not require the issuance of bond anticipation notes to pay for preliminary construction costs for the approved projects.
Okay, I have a recommendation to approve the resolution approving issuance of bond anticipation notes. Motion from Mr. Cornelius, second from Mr. Miller. Everybody remember this one, how this one works. All right, all in favor? 7-0. All right. Now let's move on to something else. So all that is just tied to our construction project, and it's all the legal things that Eric has told us we have to have in place with the state.
Eric's fault.
And as nonsensical as some of that sounds, it actually makes sense because we've been through all this. So appreciate your understanding as we work through that. Now we have a cash reserve policy to first read.
So Carrie Alford, business manager, and I attended a training for school districts and managing funds. Something that we have is cash balances in each of our accounts, operations, education, and rainy day. And there's probably a lot of right answers on what is the right amount of cash balance to carry. And so through the training, we received information and basically what this would basically be presenting a philosophy or a practice for the board to follow, for myself and Carrie to follow as we manage the school district's funds. It would be something that we could analyze on a yearly basis essentially what we're proposing is that our reserve target, that, we may not be there, but it would be something to look towards, that we would carry an operations account cash balance of 20% of expenses coming out of that account, education account 20%, and that we would have a target for the rainy day of 4 million. We're a ways from there, and we're working that account back up from leveraging it for the Hatchet Hollow project. But again, this would be something that if it was voted in on that second reading in May, we would come back to it. And I don't know if you remember, but every January we do kind of a financial review of where we stand. This would be a piece of that review, and we could really kind of frame the information to you on kind of where we stand with these target areas.
Yeah, if I read that correct, a lot of this is if we're not at that level, we would have a 3-year goal of getting to those levels and planning to try and make that happen. Right. Okay, so that's just a reading, no action at this point, correct? Okay, we're going to do a second reading and potential approval of the Washington Community Schools 25-26 handbooks.
Yeah, so we're second reading of the proposed handbooks. You've had those for the last 2 months. I would recommend that we approve those. We'll move forward with, getting everything ready and having those ready for the start of the 25-26 school year.
Okay, have a recommendation to approve the 25-26 handbooks. Do I have a motion from Mrs. Brown? Second from Mr. Miller. Anybody have any more further questions on the handbooks? If not, all in favor of approval? 7-0. And I know a lot of time was put in going over those and cleaning some stuff up, so we do appreciate it. All right, looks like girls basketball has got a trip to approve.
Yes, girls basketball is requesting an out-of-state trip to Six Flags in St. Louis. Is kind of an end of June team bonding event. It would occur, they would leave early in the morning and come back that night. But because it's across the state lines, it does require board approval.
Okay, I have a recommendation to approve the girls basketball trip to Missouri. Do I have a motion for that? Mr. McCormick, second from Mr. Miller. Anybody have any questions on the trip? All in favor of approval? 7-0. Any other?
No other.
Okay, we're at the point of the meeting where we would entertain patron statements on non-agenda topics. Do we have anybody signed up for that? All right. We'll move on to our information items.
Upcoming meetings, Monday night at 7:30, we have a executive session scheduled. For Tuesday night, next Tuesday, April 22nd at 8 o'clock, we'll have a special board meeting. The regular May board meeting will be May 15th at 7 p.m.
It's our graduation day. 24th. Okay.
10 a.m., right?
10 a.m.
10 a.m., yeah.
All right. Does anyone have anything else to bring before the board at this time? I would enter a comment on the trip we made last weekend that you all approved for the band to go to Ohio. They had a good trip. Placed 11th out of 15 in a competition where we saw bands from Florida, Georgia, Texas. I mean, it's a pretty stiff competition there, so that was something that those kids were proud of, and they had a nice trip.
I'll make a comment on the choir last Saturday. They went to Monrovia in competition and came back with a gold with distinction, which I guess,
That's really
I'm not a choir guy. I guess that's as good as you can get.
Yes.
And hope I'm not getting that ahead of the story here, but sometime this week, Mr. Griffith got an email from someone because of that competition, inviting the choir to Rome next year.
Wow.
So Brenna came home and told us that yesterday or the day before. So he's seeing if he can make that happen.
Okay.
You're not interested in being chaperone,
I
right?
will be a chaperone. So that's just something to keep an eye.
Yes, that's awesome.
Very cool.
Yes.
I don't know how that invite happened, but it happened because of their competition.
Wow.
That might be the New York trip last year.
Yeah.
Might have been because one of their songs was in Latin. I couldn't, that's pretty amazing.
Wow.
He does a great job.
He does.
Like to give compliments to Mr. Cochran and the ladies in that office for rescheduling all these rainouts that we're been having with the spring sports. I know that's always a tough time. I personally would prefer it didn't rain for a little while too. So. All right.
I want to give a shout out to maintenance and grounds, just with what they've done to get our fields ready. And I walked through the junior high track meet and had a couple of different, at a North Davies and a South Knox person that I know to say, this place is awesome. So that's always cool to get compliments for our facilities, and just thank you to Graham and his team for having everything looking good.
I had a Lincoln parents talked to me last night at the track meet, said the same thing.
Yeah.
They said, how come Vincent's can't have something this nice?
All right. If no one has anything else, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Hedrick, second. Mrs. Browning, all in favor? Meeting adjourned. Thank you.